Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of TWiP. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today, I have a good friend of mine on the podcast, Matthew Jordan Smith. Man, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Can't complain. Life is good. Trying to be good anyway.
Last time you and I spoke was it? It was after COVID, right? Or it's not
I'm
that
trying
long.
to
It was
remember. It was,
because you were just about, no, you know what? You were just about to kick off the Aretha Franklin book.
yes, you're right.
Like
I was just starting.
the Kickstarter
Yeah.
hadn't opened yet,
No,
and it was
no.
because you came on the show to talk about it. Yeah, how'd all
Exactly.
that
That was the
go?
last
Is
time.
it? Yeah,
Well, Kickstarter
the
was
launch.
fantastic. Did well. We made it. Published the book. Sold out of the first edition of the book. I didn't went into a second printing. Ended up doing The View about 6 months ago. Did The View.
Yeah, yeah.
Got on CNN. So the book is doing well. The book is called Aretha Cool, The Intimate Portraits. It's the last decade of pictures of Aretha Franklin. And can I say the big thing that happened this week?
Yes, of course. I was gonna segue you into it, but yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's been such a crazy, crazy week. It's going by so fast. But this week had a really big win for the book. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is now carrying Aretha Cool. So because of that, the book's on sale on Amazon all this month to celebrate that.
That is great. Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
Congratulations.
Thank
Like
you.
that's ridiculous. I could, I feel like I had a hand in that because
You did. You
a
did.
little. There
Maybe
was a
get started.
molecule of a hand in there. That is so cool. So how has the book been received so far? Is everybody loving it?
I hope they're loving it. It's done well. You got to keep pushing with the book. It's now been out that first launch when it first comes out. You're getting all the press. And then the press dies down. That's when you got to, as an author, you've got to really kick in and do other things. So I'm learning. It's my first time ever. It's my fourth book, but my first time ever going into a second printing. So that was exciting and scary at the
So
same time.
so for books like this, that are not ebooks, right? This is a
It's
high
a book.
end. This is the real deal. In fact, didn't you work with Peter Levshin and that
Yes.
crew
Here in
on it?
LA. Yes,
Yes.
indeed.
Yeah. So yeah, you brought the big guns in to do this beautiful heirloom book of a national treasure, Aretha Franklin, right? So all that. So I get all that, right? So all that you needed the magic touch in order to make sure that this thing was something people were going to treasure for a long time. But for other people, right? Us mortals, if we want to publish a book, we have other options, right? We could do ebooks, we can go through Blurb or any number of on demand publishers. Describe the process of and the thought process
Whoa.
from that level, your level of, speaking with celebrities all the time and putting out a book that needs to be of that caliber versus putting out a book that's, hey, I like taking pictures of grasshoppers and here you go. Like what's the delta there?
Well, the difference is the print run. If you're doing a book for yourself or for friends and family or to have a book to give away to clients, that's one thing. I think Blurb would be wonderful in situations like that. But if you're printing hundreds of books, maybe thousands of books, you want to go to a publisher who can handle that. I did not go to a traditional publisher. I went to a publisher that's kind of like a self-publisher. They do great books in LA and specifically a lot of music books. And I love them for that. ICLA, they did a great job of printing, getting the book done. But all of after printing was on me. So all the publicity, all the press, I had to hire publicists, and then hit the ground running, trying to get the baby out there and to the public. And now I've got, physical books in hand, trying to sell those ones. So
Yeah, I always thought like the publishing industry, the old school publishing industry, the value that they brought and the reason that they were gatekeepers at the time was because
they
they were
lost somewhat.
gatekeepers. Like if you want to get a book out in Barnes and Nobles, you got to go talk to this publisher and if it's a technical book, go talk to that publisher and then they would handle taking you through the
Everything.
process of writing the book, getting the ISBN number, promoting the book, all the things. But then you fast forward to today, I feel like it's different. So if you like you just talked about, if depending on your tolerance for not the best quality, even then, some would argue that. but you can do it all yourself. All that ISBN number stuff,
You do it
even if you're gonna
all
do, you could
yourself.
do an audio book. There's so much stuff you could do now. Does the self-published flow have a pathway into that? Okay, now I'm publishing Aretha Cool level work.
The self-publishing world is not an easy one. You got to imagine 1,000 hardcover heavy books showing up at your doorstep. And then you have to figure out how to, get those books out there. That's definitely a challenge. And then, I live in Japan and I'm selling books predominantly in the States. That's another challenge as well. So moving that amount of books, going through the whole process of publishing the book and printing, all that whole process, it's not easy, but it's not my first rodeo. So I had experience doing it with my last 2 books were self-published. My first 2 were by a traditional publisher back in the day. And the advantage of self-publishing is that you get more of the revenue, but you have to do everything. With a
All of it.
self-publisher, yeah, getting into any store, all that is you. Getting press, that's you. It's a lot of heavy lifting. Where having a publisher, they do all that stuff. They can get it, press that you can't get. I had help by having an amazing publicist, Aretha Franklin, after working with her for 13 years, and a lot of other celebrities. I know a lot of great publicists. So I hired a publicist, Aretha's old publicist, Gwendolyn Quinn, and she helped me get on the shows. I ended up doing like 5 different shows. The 2 biggest ones were The View, and then of course getting the CNN piece. So those
Yeah.
2 were major, but it was a lot of work to get there.
Yeah, yeah. But that's it. And anything worth doing is gonna take a lot of work, right? Even the blurb.
Absolutely.
So okay, as an aside, I gotta ask you, how was that experience on The View? Like, was it like how was that like from I would have been nervous, right? From standing backstage until they call you on or whatever.
It was
Take
surreal.
us, lay people through it.
It was surreal in so many ways. It goes by so fast. You're out there, you're on the stage, and you're sitting, and I'm sitting in the audience in the front because they wanted me to be in the front. I'm sitting there with my publicist, and they say, okay, she's gonna ask you one question because Whoopi had chose my book as one of her favorite books, and each person had their favorite book, and Whoopi chose my book as her favorite book, and she asked me like, what was so great about this book? What's different? So I had to say that really fast. I was giving like literally 20 seconds to speak, and that was it. But it was great, and they got it out there. And then Whoopi there's 2 versions of my book. There's the normal book, which is on Amazon, and then there's a limited edition book of only 100 signed and numbered books, 1 through 100. And Whoopi has one of those books. There are about 40 of those left. Those books are only on arethacool.com. There are like 40 left of those. And this, it was surreal being on The View and fantastic in so many ways, and great having Whoopi Goldberg say, oh, this is my favorite book, of the summer. So that was kind of cool.
I mean that whole thing seems like a dream, right? It seems like you had the idea, or even the whole part of the topic of this podcast is personal projects. So take
Yeah.
us through that. How
Yes.
did it start? Because you knew Aretha from way back in the day, right?
Way back when,
So
yeah.
you had this idea for this book. Was it commissioned? Take us from the germ all the way through to you're sitting talking to Whoopi Goldberg.
Well, it
How did we
actually
get
started
there?
like the first time I met Aretha. My first book was out at the time, which is kind of funny. So I gave her on my very first shoot a gift at the end of the shoot, which was my first book called Sepia Dreams. And Sepia Dreams is a book of 50, African American celebrities with interviews that I did of each of them talking about their journey of being, stardom, becoming a star. And she's looking through the book at the end as I'm giving her the book, and she's like, oh, this is beautiful. Why am I not in this book? So she puts me on the spot, and rightfully so. She's the queen of soul. So I told her right then and there, I promise you one day I'll do a book and you will be included, if not you alone in the book. And that's what started our relationship. And 13 years later, I've shot her until she passed away. And I'm like, okay, I made that promise to her. I should do this book. Then the pandemic hit, and put the brakes on things. And when it was over, kind of over, I started back again and got the book out there. And that was the process for me. But it started with, just doing personal projects, which I'm always doing. I go from one to I'm working on another one right now, as a matter of fact. And you never, I guess you never stop. Like, it's great for commission work and all that stuff, but the personal projects, those are, your life's blood. It keeps you going, keeps you excited, keeps you inspired, and it makes you work hard.
Yeah, like the whole story of the inception of Aretha Cool, the book, uh, even your meeting her, right,
Yeah,
was the thread that goes through all that was photography, all the way
absolutely.
from meeting Aretha Franklin, using your camera as your, I don't know, catalyst, Trojan horse, whatever, right? It got you, without the camera, you're just like, hey, I'm a fan,
That's true.
what you want, baby, I got, right? But but after that, like once you put that thread of photography and the work that you do that stands on top of that, it's all instant credibility, right? It's like, okay, this person is real, they do real work. Now we are, as artists, we can have that bond all the way through her passing, right? That's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. What a story. So then on personal projects then, so on that scale, right? That's lightning striking, something similar may happen to people, but not that, right? So for people that are doing more, let's call it pedestrian, the personal projects, what are we looking at? How do we get inspired to just come from like things we see on TV? Like, how do I get that spark to do something that's not only important to me, but other people and, in some cases, society?
I think you should always start as a photographer with the things that move you that you aren't even aware of, things that move your soul. Like, all my personal projects have meant something to me. And I think for every photographer, find that thing that you identify with. What makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you feel something. Turn those feelings that you have that are yours into a personal project, because you'll put your heart and soul into it. It won't be like work, and the pictures will show that. So follow your heart. That's for every photographer. Whatever that thing is that you love or that you feel passionate about, turn that passion into your personal project.
Yeah. A lot of photographers will say, okay, that sounds great. If you live in one of the most dynamic and vibrant cities on the planet, Tokyo, right? You're rubbing elbows with, celebrities of, all this raw talent all around you all the time. Plus you're a talent of yourself. Sure, you could say that, but if you live in a small town, there's not a whole lot going on in that town. You might have an in and out. I'm describing myself. Like, how do you get that spark to go do like something like that? I'm in an agricultural community, right? So I'm not in Tokyo. I have San Francisco that I can drive to, granted, but you know, for those people that are like, yeah, yeah, you're you, I'm me. How do I get me closer to where you are?
Well, I grew up in a small town. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, but grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. So I know about, being small town city, but you find your inspiration no matter where you are. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever moves you, you can shoot. I mean, we all went through the pandemic and we're stuck in our homes, with nothing to do. And people were finding that thing that made them come alive and shoot. And I think for all of us, no matter where we are, we find that thing, whatever it is that you enjoy doing. I don't care what it is. You turn that passion into your personal project. It can be small, it can be big. It doesn't matter. It can be all consuming or not. It can be a book. It can be an exhibit of 5 images, 5 images you shot in the last 5 months. Just do something that moves you, that inspires you to get your work out there. I remember once going out with a friend and went to an opening, and she made a comment that has always stayed with me. She said, "Oh yeah, if you're not photographed by, in the red carpet, it's like you weren't there." Now, this is a celebrity talking about going to an event and I'm like, but I've always thought about that statement. And I'm like, as a photographer, if you shoot something and you don't show it, it's like you didn't shoot it. So
Wow.
I'm
If a
always
tree
thinking
falls
like,
in the
okay,
forest.
yeah, we need to shoot all the time, which I always do, and then show the work. And those words that I heard 15 years ago or more, they stay with me. Even like with my other small project, I'm like, oh wow, I shot that, but nobody knows I shot that. I should just put it out there because I love doing it. And sometimes in doing that without thinking about how it's going to benefit us in the long run or in career wise or whatever, do better at it. If you're just doing things for the love of it and putting it out there, because people feel the love in the images and then it comes back.
Yeah, but a lot of that has gotten, yeah, yeah. I know it's a strong word, but I'll say polluted. A lot of
Yeah,
that purity of vision and drive, I
I
feel like,
agree.
to be an artist, like I feel this burning thing in the back of my head. I got to go create a shot of this black and white thing with a red balloon in it. Got to go do it, right? So that vision and creative drive, I feel like, has been polluted by social media and the chasing of the thumbs up and the likes and group group sort of what do you call it, co-signing of your work, right? Everybody, this many people gave me a thumbs up, so therefore I must be good at that kind of shot, so I'm going to do more of that and feed it, right? Because they're telling me what I'm good at. Is that, I mean, you feel that
That
pollution in
thumbs
there?
up. Yeah, I do. I talk about it all the time with my students. I'm like, don't get led, astray by the likes because I know people who are growing up in this generation, Generation Alpha, Generation X, I mean, they just probably feel like this is how I know I'm liked or my work is liked. And it's a fallacy. It's not true. It can lead you astray. You shouldn't really care about, and it's hard to say this, you shouldn't care about what people think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again. You shouldn't care about what people think. You've got to show the work that you really enjoy, regardless of if anybody gives you a thumbs up on it or not. Now, I know that's hard today because we live in a world where this gratification comes from getting, 100 likes or whatever. That means nothing. Sometimes people are watching your work silently, seeing what you're doing and taking it all in little by little by little. And then it's the accumulation of all that work where it really settles. It's not about one picture. For photographers, it's never been about that one image, but the body of work. It's hard to see the body of work on social media today because everybody's strolling so fast and going past from one thing to the other. But we must work on the body of work. And if the body of work is just the work that you love, after a while you start seeing this amazing work that's all you. And there's nothing about you that can make me wrong. You put out you and you're going to find your audience. We don't need the whole world to love our work. We just need our tribe. That's it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's gonna be a clip. I'm gonna make a short on YouTube just for no, but like as you were saying that, I'm wondering, and this goes back to, hey, like my dad used to tell me, if you're gonna do a thing, do that thing better than anybody else. Even if you can't get there, at least strive for, that. You remember that talk?
Yes, I do very well.
And I wonder, like, does that lead to specialization and not being able to explore genres that you may have found more suited to you because you are drilling down on this one thing right here because, you know, if it first don't succeed and all that stuff. So I'm just going to burn a hole in that and keep trying until I get good at that better than anybody else. When in reality, you should have been over here doing this thing because you didn't try it. Can photographers have two minds? Like, can you have two genres, or can you only be a, I don't want to say one trick pony, but do you have to specialize in order to be successful, or can you be, you know, sort of a jack
I
of
have
a
this
couple of trades?
conversation a lot with photographers here in Japan because I have friends who do a little bit of everything and literally jump from one thing to the other, whatever's hot in the moment. And those images look great all the time. However, I might be a minority in this. I feel the audience gets confused and like, oh, yeah, you can do everything, but what are you really, really good at? And until you're showing what you thrive at and staying on that, I think people can get very confused by seeing, okay, one day I'm doing cars, I do them really, really well. Maybe one day I'm shooting pictures of landscapes, I do that very, very well. One day I'm shooting portraits, I do that, pretty well as well. I think people start seeing somebody who does a little bit of everything like everybody else. But when they want to come to one person who does one thing well, and that one thing is the thing that you enjoy doing the most, when you do that, you can't help but thrive at that one thing because people know you for doing that thing. Now, I shoot stuff that are outside of beauty portraits for sure, that are for me. But I don't show that work with my core body of work.
That's more
So
personal,
yeah, for
right?
personal
And
work.
like, is it personal? Like, is for you only, or is it just your close circle of friends?
It's more for me only, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been doing a documentary the last wow, 5 years now, maybe 6 years. There's something called Yabusame in Japan. Yabusame is horseback archery. And they dress in Edo style. They're galloping on a horse. The horse is dressed Edo style, and they're shooting bow and arrow at targets on a galloping horse. It's amazing to see. So I've gotten very close to this one group, and I've been documenting them over the years as they get dressed, the whole process, and I have an amazing body of work. That's just for me. I love doing it. Haven't shown it anywhere yet, but I love the process. And I have many things like that I do that, that I love doing. It gives me joy, keeps me in love with photography. But for my work, air quotes,
Mm-hmm.
it's about just showing the work that is in my realm.
That's interesting because yeah, I had a conversation with I think you may, I'm not sure if you know her, over at Adobe, one of the Adobe evangelists, Julianne Cost.
Oh,
And she
yes,
was,
yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Julianne? Yeah, yeah. She was, this is a while ago. She was telling me, we were talking about personal projects even back then. And she was telling me, I think it was actually in a TWiP interview. So it may be in the archives, but she does the same thing. There's projects that she shoots just for her own self, fulfillment as an artist, to tell stories that nobody cares about. And she's just telling them to herself, right? Through
Yeah,
her camera. And then
it's you
there's another
sharpening
body
your
of work.
knife.
Yeah, sharpening your knife. Yeah, yeah. And then there's another body of work she has that people can see, right? You can go out and see what she does and see her as an artist. Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't heard sort of that perspective of it. Like something like the sport of shooting apple from a
Yes,
moving horse, like Rapunzel or something. And then the photography, knowing that the caliber of photographer that you are, and that work is, may or may not ever be seen,
that's
that makes
true.
that work that much more valuable. I think it also adds another dimension from a public perspective into you, because it's like, oh, he's got all this hidden work in there that we don't even know about. He's only
Absolutely.
letting us see this one, right?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
But here's the
that's
other great
cool.
thing about doing things like that. It's like you practicing storytelling. As a photographer, you're shooting things that move you. It's your point of view, and you're putting all that work together as a story. Maybe one day there'll be a book. I don't know what it will be, but I know I love shooting so much and trying to tell a story, not just shoot, the main shot of them galloping down this right way and shooting the bow and arrow. That's the touchdown. But I want to get, as they're getting ready, as they're practicing, what does that feel like? What kind of saddle do they use? Why do they ride a certain way? I want to find out all that stuff and tell a story visually. And I think doing that helps me anyway, in telling stories, period, no matter what I'm shooting. And stories, visual stories, grab people, not just one single picture, but your ability as a photographer to tell a story visually that people can connect with.
Yeah. Yeah, the story is the other element of it, because then the self project that's ongoing can be an ongoing narrative of something that you're telling yourself that no one else would even know how these photos relate to each other. But
Yeah.
so
Yes.
that, yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Yeah, I wanted to kind of go back a little bit and talk about history a little. You and I think in our last conversation, we were having this deep dive, nerding out about AI and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and what it was even back then, what it could do, and we're still blown away now, obviously. But looking at all that stuff, the AI, the generative this and that, and what's real, what's not real, and that whole kind of world of ambiguity that we're in, does that make the history of photography more important than ever, do you think? Or does it make it less important because all the cool stuff is ahead of us, not behind us? What do you think?
That's a great question. I think that AI is definitely another tool, and there's some pros and cons about it for sure. I think in terms of photography and being authentic, it does make authentic pictures more valuable. I definitely feel
Yeah.
that. By
Yeah.
authentic pictures, I mean, like, I'm seeing this surge now. Everybody who's like, 30 and under that I know in Japan, they're all shooting film. They're shooting these old cameras, and they're all like, it's this authentic thing about showing. Let me just show you something. I got this last week. A photographer shot an image of me and a friend and then made prints for me and made prints on paper. It's like, and this is like paper that's like, printed. They went to the dark room, made the image, this negative on silver paper, and it's just great to see this moment, shot with a camera and to hold this paper in my hand. And the whole thing is, analog. Something very special about that. Made me stop for a second, like, look, I kept on looking at this picture and I love it. That tangible thing, not ones and zeros, is kind of special. And I
Yeah.
think for photographers, yes, it's great to know about all that's brand new and shiny and wonderful. But we have to always think about, the authentic voice that we all have
Hmm.
and keep
Yeah.
that in our work.
Yeah. It's like when you showed that print, it reminded me, was it John Paul Caponegro or maybe Jay Mizell, one of them, sort of luminaries. He had said something like the print is the punctuation at the end of a sentence, not a comma.
Yeah.
It's the end of the story. But we've gotten away from that as
Yes, we
photographers,
have.
right? I mean,
Yes, we have.
since we've been talking in this like 30 minutes, there's been probably billions of photos that have been shot and seen. Where does the tactile atom physical romantic print come into that narrative when everyone's just in the sea of imagery all the time?
For me, what I'm really working on and pushing going forward is having more exhibits and showing work that way. It's a wonderful way to get people off their devices and into the real world and come to an event. And for networking, it's fantastic. It's great to show work. And there's nothing like seeing a real print versus seeing it on a device. You walk into a gallery, you walk into a museum, and you see something on a wall or however you're displaying it, and it moves you in a very, very different way. I think for photographers, we all need that. If you've never had an exhibit before, this is the time to have one.
Should we all throw away our iPads and go back to the I'm
I'm
serious. I'm
not
kind of
saying that at
serious.
all.
No, actually, I'm serious though, because if you look at, especially today, Matthew, if you look at today, like with all the AI stuff that we talked about, it's hard to believe what you see on a screen. In fact, you shouldn't believe what you
That's
see on
very
a
true.
screen.
That's very
Where in
true.
the old days, like say 3, 4, 5 years ago, you show up with like your 12-inch iPad with your body of work on, and it's just beautiful. That was amazing. And I wonder, I don't know, I'm just guessing. I'm one person guessing, but I wonder, because of all this digital stuff and it's kind of the cheapening of what it took to create amazing stuff on a
Yeah,
screen, that the physical printed book now would have so much more weight, like you in that photo, right? So much more physical and, sort of creative weight than showing stuff on a screen that you can show to a million people. I wonder
It's so
That's the
funny you say that. It's so funny because I was printing a book last night. I'm actually still printing the book. I'm not finished yet, but I want to have like I'm always meeting people out and about. It could be on the plane, it could be like, in a jazz bar, it could be anything. But people always ask what you do. And saying you're a photographer doesn't have that weight anymore. But if you're showing somebody something, that's different. So I'm printing small books to have with me all the time. I'm in Japan, so you can find mini everything, right? So I was working on 2 mini books last night. So this is one version of a mini portfolio. Now this is tiny, tiny, tiny.
I wasn't expecting you to pull out a minion
I can have this
portfolio.
anywhere and just making small little prints, to go through, and super
That's
simple.
crazy. That's beautiful. Wow.
And then I have another small book as well, but this is a little bigger one, just, because they make that difference to show a print.
Yeah.
And it's different
Wow.
and small. This way, you can have it with you everywhere you go, and you can show people your work versus tell them, and they can hold it in their hand. Like back in the day, what was super powerful was having a Polaroid in your hand. You take a picture, and the client holds the Polaroid before the shoot, and this is special. We've lost that. So having something that somebody can hold in their hand and almost possess it for a moment will make them want your work more, make them want you.
See, that's cool. And you're right. If I'm at some event or some, whatever, hanging out with other people, and I say, "Hey, what do you do?" I'm a photographer. The weight is different from if they pull out their phone and say, "Here's my Instagram,"
Absolutely.
till if they pull out something like that and it's in a little felt bag and you're like, "Yeah, here's my work. Take a look." That
Exactly.
and then they have to give it back to you. They can't just bookmark it and say, "I'm going to go check that out later while I'm, doing something else." They have to be physically present to hold and look at the work at that time, and it's fleeting because you need it back. So yeah,
Exactly.
all of it, brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. I'm curious. Yeah, chat. I'm curious how you guys are gonna feel about that when we get to the Q&A. Because like the printed, like that's a new idea. I hadn't thought about that because everyone is, especially after COVID, right? You even
Yeah.
go to a restaurant and the restaurant menus are gone and there's a QR code on the table, right?
Right.
So before you could kind of, oh, look at that. That looks juicy. You know, 3 days
QR
later in
code,
Cheesecake
a
Factory, but
device. Exactly.
but
It's
it was there
very
and it
different.
felt, yeah, it feels very different than, it almost feels like I'm bagging my own groceries when I scan a QR code.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's like, okay, I got to use my energy and my effort to look at something
Right.
I'm going to pay you for.
And figure it out.
No, man. Yeah, that is so good. That is so good. So let's wrap on at least the recorded segment of this. Let's wrap on the, so we talked about self projects and all that, but you're also an educator, right? So yeah, I've seen you on stage, and again, I'm going to bring up how you did a whole thing on the light meter and the importance of understanding light meters versus trusting R2D2 all the time, right?
Yes. Yes. I live by that.
Yeah. So people that are in this and they want to get better. Now they may be good already and they want to take it to the next level. They may just be starting and they want to get a little bit better. Where there's so much online now, with YouTube and masterclass, and there's stuff to learn everywhere. Where would you recommend people go just to, like, okay, I want to get started. I want to be a real photographer that understands light and all the things, not just somebody that understands how to put a filter on something. How do those real photographers get started in this?
That's a great question. I've got a lot to say on that. I teach a class, and I don't talk about this one that much at all. I started doing this class during the pandemic, and it stayed. I've got a course called Photography Lighting Course, and it started off being just a lighting course. But then it changed to being so much more. During the pandemic, I started doing a weekly live session every weekend for an hour. We would all come together, photographers from all over the world, and we talk about photography. And it is such an inspirational hour. It's become something way more than just the tech, which there's so much of that out there. But shooting and connecting with people, that's in many ways so much more important than just, oh, what f-stop was this shot at, what ISO, what camera, what lens, all that stuff that anybody can learn. But the soul of photography is so much more. I have my students now all working on a big, big project. And we meet every weekend for an hour and go through the work. And I, give them my suggestions. I push them. The one we're doing right now is a very hard one, but it's essential. And I remember doing different projects and assignments during the pandemic. It was not easy. Like my first assignment right before it began was to do a portrait of somebody wearing a mask. And people were like, what are you talking about? This is before it was cool and way by was doing it. People were like, I'm not going to do that. And then 6 months later, when the whole world was wearing a mask, like, you saw this coming. I'm like, it was written on the wall, guys. And as photographers, we're like, these assignments also are documenting what's happening in life at that moment. They're not just an assignment for whatever about, of course, yes, to improve your lighting and your photography and storytelling, but they're much deeper than just those types of assignments because they are about life. They're about where we are at this point, where you are at this point, where I'm at this point, and it hits you differently. It's everybody differently. And I think that's why they keep coming back week after week after week.
That's good. I mean, community, that's part of
Community.
it, right? Just
Community.
the photography is like golf, right? It's
True.
kind of a solo sport, right? That people can then come together around and exchange notes and pay a lot of money for things and all of the above.
But that said, also, I don't want to just plug my course.
Yeah.
I don't want to plug it at all, but I just want to say that wherever you find, it's great to get into a community of photographers where you can thrive together and learn together and grow together. It can be online or it can be in person. In person is better. I will say that because getting into a workshop, getting hands dirty, meeting people, something special about that. And it never gets old. You never learn everything. You're always learning and growing. When you stop learning, you kind of die. So get into a class in your neighborhood, in your state, anywhere. Just get to a class, get to a workshop and learn how to think differently than what you are normally doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And preferably one not in your town, because there's something about the being in a different sort of environment that turns
Places
on
you
different
go.
synapses. Yeah. And then the other electricity of being around other people that are shooting interesting things and using that camera that you thought you might have bought and,
People you meet.
comparing notes, all of it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
Those things change your life, like dramatically. Places you go, people you meet, books you read, those things have profound impact on your life. Not just your photography, on your life.
Yeah. This is true. All of it. And it's, yeah, there's so much. See, we're already almost an hour in. We gotta end this. I have another 100 questions to go. Chat, if you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll knock those out in this last couple minutes here. But before that, Matthew, so we talked about this sort of tactile and the importance of, respecting the art form all the way through to the end of the sentence, right? With a period.
Yeah.
But then, so that, yeah, and I 100% agree with all that. What about digital storytelling? Where do you fall on that? Because I used to, call it multimediography, where you're telling stories with whatever medium is the best for that particular story, right? If audio is the best, you're going to use audio and you know how to do that. If a photo with an audio track is it, or if video is it, or now it's AI, if that's it, whatever the tools you need to, the A team you need to assemble to tell this story, you assemble it and then tell the story. The other side of that, or I don't know if it's the antithesis of it, but the other side of it is, I'm a photographer. I use a camera. I'm going to tell all the stories through that microphone, of the camera, or, I do microphone stuff. So I'm only going to use the mic. That's my tool.
It's very
right?
powerful.
Right.
What we're here, I play podcasts every day in the gym, and it's wherever I'm walking, down the street, or I'm on the train, I'm playing a podcast. It's very powerful. So using all the tools that we have at our disposal to tell a story only makes us a better artist. better storyteller.
Yeah.
If you can tell a story with an image, or you're having a hard time telling a story with the image, why not have that still image with an audio behind it, or whatever comes out next? We don't know what's coming around the corner 2 months from now, 3 months from now. You should always learn the new tools and how to play with them, and how that can impact your impact, how it impact your impact on the world. Show how that work can have a major influence on you and those who see the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Impact. Matthew, if people want to contact you, and kind of, either for your workshop or to try to convince you to let them see those photos of the horseback, like
I'm very
any of
active
that.
on Instagram, but also my email is super simple. It's mjs at Matthew with 2 T's, jordansmith.com.
There you go. All right.
mjs at matthewjoseph.com.
I love it. We're going to leave it right there. It looks like the chat didn't have anything to chat. I think they're all riveted in there. Phil says, excellent advice.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah. Great point on photographing what we enjoy rather than what we believe, from Michael. What's up, Michael? Yeah. And then, here Phil has a question. He said, could you talk a bit about how many images you started? Let me bring this on screen. So could you talk a bit about how many images you started with for your book and how you edited down to the final version? Did you get other opinions in the process?
That's a great question. And I get that a lot about books like Aretha Cool, or even like your portfolio. People are always asking about the number of images, it seems like. With Aretha, I had 13 years of shooting her, so quite a lot of images. And as a photographer, you are very connected to the work. And sometimes that's a bad thing, because you see it thinking about the experience of being there in the room, doing the shoot, how much fun you had, what the person said, what you ate. You're having that whole experience, but the viewer has none of that. So it's great to have other eyes to help you edit, especially a big project like exhibit or a book. So I had other feedback from trusted friends, book editor, because I had a separate editor designer, and they gave me their opinion. And what they chose for the cover, I never would have chosen. As a matter of fact, in my archive, I never saw the picture. When they showed me the dummy,
you'd never seen it.
I'd never seen it. It's my work. It was, on a contact sheet. For those who remember what that is.
It was like buried in there somewhere. Wow.
And they showed me the dummy. I'm like, that's my image. I had never seen the picture. I've seen the picture, of course, but it never hit me as being, oh, this is a great shot. I was oblivious to it.
And that's the
thing, why it's
right?
Great to have other eyes seeing your
community.
Work. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, or else you become, depending on your personality type, you may become a victim of yourself, where it's like, I take pictures of this and I love it, you're going to love it, and no one loves it, right? So, unless it's your self project, then who cares, because it's all yours. All right, well, cool. Let's wrap it. I'm going to bring this comment up from Michael. Michael says, this has been fantastic. As past president of 2 photo organizations, I fully agree with the advice of encouraging photographers to join communities. Yeah, 100%.
Super 100%. Important. Super important. I mean, even for me as the, teacher leader, it is therapeutic in many ways. I mean, think about the last 7 years we've been through, and we're meeting every single week. So we're living through all this history going on as photographers, learning, shooting, discussing work, and discussing life through images. When I think back about all the discussions we've had, all the assignments we've had, kind of blows my mind. I mean, that alone could be a book. Right. All the work from the students over the last 7 years, every single week of the pandemic, and then coming out of it, and everything we're going through even now, visually, is powerful stuff.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, my TWiP community, some of the folks that are here in the chat tonight, we went through the whole COVID adventure together, and that entire roller coaster of uncertainty and all that, know, and I can't tell you how invaluable it was to have like human contact, outside of the house that were interested in the same stuff I'm interested in, right? So we can connect on that
Absolutely.
level and still commiserate about the, whatever is happening. So yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good stuff. Community. We'll have to continue this, and we can't make it
Wait,
another, you
definitely
know,
have to. Definitely have to. I would love that. There's so much to say. I mean, there's so much, even like in your question that you sent me, I'm like, oh, wow, I want to definitely hit on that and that and that. There's so much I want to get into for sure.
yeah,
So
yeah.
please have me
Some of
back.
those things on that list could be a whole. I think we'll just make it a whole episode.
That'd be great. That would be
Yeah, you know
great.
what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So we'll do
Yes, I
that.
do. Yes,
We'll
I
make that a
do.
whole episode, and we'll have that conversation later. All right, everyone. Thank you, Matthew. This
Thank
has
you.
been
Thank you.
fantastic again. My mind is blown. It's going to be one of those episodes I have to re-listen to again, after the edit, just because there's so many sage nuggets of inspiration and wisdom in there. So, yeah, thank
Thank you,
you.
man.
Thank you for sharing that.
Always great talking to you. And hello to the audience who's just coming in. Thank you guys for being here, for your questions, for everything. That last one about the amount of pictures for a book, we can talk about that for an hour alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big one. Thanks for that one,
The
Phil.
pain and joy of culling, right?
Yes, yes, indeed.
All right. We'll end it right there. Thanks everybody for listening. This week in photo, the new style. We'll see how it goes. Take care, everybody.
Peace.